Hello, everyone. Another learning opportunity with IGP. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our Institution of Global Professionals free webinar. So, I would like to thanks to all of our participants who right now join with us in this session. My dear participants, today I'm your host again, Nasrin Nisha from Bangladesh. Welcome to all of you to our Institute of Global Professionals International Free Webinar. So, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. I feel honored and privileged to host this webinar. And it's my delight to welcome you all to our Institute of Global Professionals free webinar. So, thank you all for joining with us in this marvelous moment. And it's my humble request and pleasure to all of you. Please stay with us till the end. Okay. So, I'm sure that you all will have many takeaways and payoffs from this webinar. And each time you can give a react and comment in our webinar. So, dear participants, let's learn together and grow together because we believe that power is gained by sharing knowledge, not holding it. Okay, so before starting our program, let me know that am I clear and audible? So it will be help for me that am I clearly to our audience. Okay, so dear participants, okay, so dear participants, every day some new participants joined with us. So I have to give a little concept about the Institute of Global Professionals. So IGP serves student and community resource providing holistic social work and education for create a proficient generation. And IGP is a ISO certified compliant training institute. We make it gadget able to use for every knowledge seeker to originate personality, more ambitious, make confident to get to face any circumstance and develop their own skills. We are entrusted with international recognition. Institute of Global Professionals is an educational institution provides social work. We believe that it's not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate generation all over the world. We organized our webinar, online, offline, courses, etc., by best and trained speakers and coaches from all over the world to create a best learning platform for all of you. And our mission is empower people and enhance. So, dear participants, let's start our program with IGP's mantra that is feed your skill. And tonight, I'm presenting webinar number 604. The topic is promoting positive culture in virtual and face-to-face class. So this is a very interesting topic. So everyone, don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends in our comment box. You can also share this webinar in your timeline, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn, and all the social media you are accessing. So, dear participants, today we have two speakers. So let's welcome our first speaker. Okay, so let's welcome our first speaker from Philippines, Ma'am Joveline C. Arevalo. So give a round of virtual claps for our honorable speaker. Hello, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am, and thank you for introducing me.
Thank you
Good
so
evening,
much, ma'am.
everyone. I hope that you can see my presentation. Once again, good evening, everyone. Warm greetings on behalf of the Regional Science High School 3 from the school's division of Olongapo City, Philippines. Tonight, I will share some practices promoting positive culture in a virtual classroom. In March 2020, we felt that our world turns on end. The worldwide lockdowns, which resulted from the COVID-19 outbreak, closed businesses, canceled events, and halted gatherings, including our face to face classes. As educators approach school year 2020-2021, it has become apparent that our schools will transition to distance learning, including the online modality. The first few months of working from home are spent by dedicated educators to webinars and trainings on learning to navigate teaching in the digital space. So, what is a virtual classroom? A virtual classroom is a teaching and learning environment where participants can interact, communicate, view, and discuss presentations and engage with learning resources while working in groups, all in an online setting. A positive classroom culture promotes student involvement and ensures that they feel valued and supported in their learning. The classroom and instruction cultivates an environment with a caring atmosphere where everyone can be more engaged to the learning process. In a traditional classroom, there are standard practices that most teachers use and effectively establish a desired culture. However, in shifting to online learning, these strategies rarely transfer perfectly. Perhaps the most pressing challenge faced by teachers related to online teaching is the use of technology. Teachers who are primarily trained to work face to face are obligated eventually to pivot their pedagogy and deliver lessons online to ensure the continuity of our youth's education and save human capital and eventually the economy. Familiarity with the digital platform is not the only concern. When online learning was rolled out, the teacher eventually asked herself this or himself these questions and sought immediate solutions. So the first question is, do or can students show up for live sessions to ensure that no student is left behind? Unfortunately, there is a significant number of learners who could not join online modality, even if they desire to choose online modality. And those who can struggle to feel invested in their education with the uncertainty and anxiety looming around. The next question is, are the materials I provide accessible to the learners? A creatively crafted material, even even when made on a highly sophisticated app, loses its purpose and worth if it will not be accessible to the learners. Preparing materials has become more challenging and rigorous as teachers and learners alike are new to the digital platform. It requires more patience to guide our learners to be able to participate, from helping them locate the mic on or off button to creating accounts in apps. And we prepare a longer list of plans, A, B, and C's for alternative materials. The third question is, are they interacting with the materials I provide? Are the materials interactive enough to encourage active participation of learners whose motivation decreased significantly due to the pandemic? The last question is, are they communicating with me regularly? How do we encourage responses from our learners? We all know that feedback plays a very vital role in the teaching and learning process. The chat box became our staple for communication in the online class. Emojis became popular as well. I can still vividly remember the very first time I instructed my students to type 1 in the chat box if you could hear me well, or can you see my presentation, or to key in their emojis that represent how they feel at the moment. It is important to note that encouraging communication in an online platform involves considerable amount of patience. There is plenty of silent time in an online class. The teacher asking, "Are you there?" or "Can you hear me?" is a typical online class scenario. However, when we ask questions, we do not rush our students to provide answers. They are probably in the restroom, as an online class can last longer than a typical face-to-face class. Or the student could be missing a keyboard or be having difficulty finding the toggle button. So how do we create a positive classroom culture in the virtual setting? So the first I'd like to share is to elicit effective responses. The pandemic is a form of a disaster to everyone. And in a disaster, providing a safe space for learners to talk about their emotions through activities with a psychological support mechanism is crucial. Research shows that naming our emotions can help us feel more calm. Provide plenty of opportunity for students to connect with us and each other, whether it is related to content or just connecting their thoughts and feelings. It is now more than ever our students need to know that there is someone who cares and thinks about them. On the slide, you can see a couple of activities that I usually do to elicit effective responses in my classes, in my online classes. So I usually do a daily check-in activity by the start of my session. So the first one here is an image which says superhero name, which I got from an Instagram user named John Spencer, who is also an educator. So in using this activity, I usually just ask my students to um, create their superhero name. So how do they create their superhero name? So they will simply share, the first word would be how they feel, okay? And the second one is what they are doing when you procrastinate during quarantine. So I usually utilize the chat box for the answers for this particular activity. So examples of answers I got are uh, excited dalgonas or happy TikToks because these are the things that they usually did during the quarantine. The second image is actually a Mentimeter, which is a very good application to use when you are doing daily check-ins and eliciting effective responses. So the Mentimeter is a very popular app, a polling app, which we could use for this purpose. Other materials I use in the class, this one entitled Lighten Up the Mood, which I created using the Nearpad application. I went away with the simple activity of a sketch how you feel. We don't always ask them and ask them to type their answers in the chat box. Sometimes we ask them to sketch how they feel. And in this particular activity entitled Lighten Up the Mood, I gave them an image of a somewhat gloomy student or person, and I asked them to add details which could lighten up the mood in this image. So as you can see, a guitar, a car, a plant, and many others has been added by my students. This application as well, with colorful post-its, is a Line With app. So we do not only ask our students to share how they feel emotionally, mentally, it is also equally important that we ask how they are physically. So this is a simple way of asking how they are when I ask what's for or what they ate for breakfast. And then you can see immediately from their answers that some of them they did eat their breakfast and others did not. And we can easily remind them to go and eat something before we start the session. There are other materials as well, Google Forms and Google Slides for daily check-in activity to elicit effective responses. Materials, I usually use materials downloaded from Teachers Pay Teachers. It sounds that all materials there are purchased, but there's plenty of materials that can be downloaded for free from this website, Teachers Pay Teachers. The second one is we create a positive classroom culture in a virtual setting by facilitating active and collaborative learning. Research findings reveal that active student involvement in instructional processes correlates significantly to the student's knowledge retention and achievement. So what is active learning? Active learning is a dynamic teaching and learning process which engages learners as active participants in the teaching learning process. The teacher and the students learn by doing, performing, and reflecting on insights gained from specific activities such as fun games, simulations, role play, introspection, and the like. Active learning facilitates an engaging process. Collaborative learning is a social process that affirms our students' development of capabilities to learn independently with their peers rather than dependently on their teacher. The teacher's role shifts from being a dispenser of knowledge to that of an architect and facilitator of learning experiences. An online learning environment can make use of breakout rooms, maximize the chat features, and other collaborative workspaces such as Minecraft to promote active learning. We should provide multiple options for students to both receive information as well as to express and demonstrate what they learned. We should learn to enhance our content by using various platforms, apps, and websites to facilitate active and collaborative learning. On the slide, you can see here the first image, the bigger image shows smaller Chrome tabs that represent my students' breakout rooms via Google Meet. On the right side, you can see here an image of students collaborating with their teacher using Minecraft for education, which is a very good platform as well for active and collaborative learning. So one of my favorite apps as well is the Linewit app, because when after my students perform their activities in their breakout rooms, such as games, I simply ask them to screenshot their scores in the game, and then they can easily post them in the Linewit app. Also, on the Padlet app, which is a very good collaboration app as well. As you can see on the Padlet app, in their breakout rooms, I ask my student to solve a puzzle here, a crossword puzzle. And when they are done, given the time I have given them, when they're finished, all they need to do is to post their output in the Padlet app. I'm very fond of this platform as well, which is the Canva app, which sometimes doesn't need a breakout room because you can see their progress real time as they develop the task or the output that we assign them to do in the Canva app. Thirdly, we create a positive classroom culture in the virtual setting by using flexible teaching approaches and assessment tools. These flexible teaching approaches and assessment tools are the game changer. Gamification transforms classroom environment and activities into learning engagement and motivation. On the slide, you can see here the interface of a gamified simulation application known as Labster, which I will share with you later. So these are I'm very fond of this material as well. We have the Bitmoji virtual classroom, which I use in my online classes. This material is very helpful because I can just create them on a Google slide and organize the materials I need, the instructional materials I need for a particular week. Everything that I need to use for a particular module um, can be organized in a single Bitmoji virtual classroom. Do not worry because there's plenty of templates downloadable which are free online and also from Teachers Pay Teachers. These are also other examples of interactive. Some of you or many of you are probably familiar with this. So I use the word wall, quizzes, the Nearpad, and the Kahoot, and other materials such as the Linowit app, the Canva app, the Padlet, um, the Ed um, the Ed Puzzle, wherein you can insert questions. So we go away with the usual playing a video. Using the Ed Puzzle, we can insert questions so that we could have a more interactive discussion of a particular lesson that we're trying to show using a video and other gamified applications. Lastly, we create a positive classroom culture in the virtual setting by establishing rules and building respect. The virtual classroom must be a safe place, not only for us, but most especially for our learners. Cultivating a culture of trust in the shared virtual space involves building relationship and helping students build empathy and understanding for each other. We are the mastermind of our safety in the virtual classroom, we teachers, as we are the host to every meeting we conduct. To be able to filter entities joining our meeting, I use the Google Calendar to schedule my online classes and paste my students' email addresses in the invite section. So when an entity that is not invited tries to enter, I can usually deny this entity to join and protect my students um, from any unwanted or unwelcome guests. Another way of protecting our learners from accidentally sending out words and images is our control to mute and turn off the video of participants in the meeting who seem to lose control of their devices. So before I end my session this morning, allow me to show you a glimpse of this website, which is a simulation website, which I believe will be when you conduct, useful for you when you conduct your online classes. So this platform usually focused on science laboratory techniques, which we failed to do because we're not able to go to our laboratories. So when we conduct our online classes, we can have an alternative to allow our students to experience doing laboratory work and performing laboratory techniques via simulation using this very useful application.
Click on the door to enter the laboratory. Find 5 safety hazards and click on them. For sure, chemicals need to be stored in designated cupboards and not just placed on the floor. This is especially important for reactive chemicals. Flammable liquids need to be stored in fire-proof cabinets. 1 hazard down, 4 more to go. Identify the hazards by clicking on them. Well spotted. Every lab has 2 emergency exits which ensure that nobody gets cornered in the event of a fire. The emergency door isn't any good if it is blocked by objects. Click on the handcart to move it to a safe location. Well done. The emergency exits have to always be clear. There are 3 more hazards. Can you find them? The fume hood constantly draws air through a filter to ensure that you don't get in contact with dangerous chemicals. The airflow only works effectively if the glass sash is pulled down. Let's close this fume hood. What a relief. Now the air is safe to breathe. There are 2 more hazards. Can you find them? A sink full of dirty glassware isn't a nice surprise. Make sure you always clean, dry, and put away the equipment after every experiment. Let's remove the glassware. Beautiful, clean and tidy. There is 1 more hazard. Click on it. That's it. This bench looks very messy. It is important to keep the lab bench tidy. Any clutter should be cleared away before starting a new experiment, and there should be no
Okay, I think it's not done yet, ma'am. Am I right?
Thank you, ma'am. I think this is all for me tonight.
Okay, okay.
I hope
Thank
I hope that I was able to share something interesting you could use in your own virtual classes. Thank you all so much.
thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. And we will meet you in our QA session. So please stay with us. So dear participants, let's welcome our next speaker. Okay. So welcome our honorable speaker from Philippines. Sir RJ's as Atlas. So welcome, sir. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Miss Naseen. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak with your members and, of course, the participants live right now.
Thank you, sir. So please share your PowerPoint slide.
All right, let me share my screen so we can start the party.
Yes.
Sharing my screen now. Just checking. Can you see my presentation, Miss Naseen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So to start with, well, a warm greetings to all of the participants who are here with us tonight. And of course, to the participants who are watching via YouTube and other platforms that this live stream is being streamed right now. No? I appreciate the participation and engagement of all the global members of the International Global Professionals. So for tonight, let me be your speaker, and I do hope that I will be able to share some of my learnings in the past 2 years battling or how do we term this? Yeah, battling, striving actively and passionately, trying our best to still continue teaching and facilitating learning in our classroom. For the information of everyone, the first speaker, Miss Jovelyn C. Arevalo, is actually my colleague at the Regional Science High School 3. We are both science teachers, and currently both of us are actually teaching research. We are teaching the research curriculum from grade 7 to grade 10. So with that, I would like to start by telling everyone our title for tonight. My topic will be promoting healthier academic debt transition. Now, for the purpose of this discussion today, I would like to borrow and use the word debt transition, which reflects our situation these days, where from the pre-pandemic teaching and learning situation uh, that we are used to, and in March 2020 here in the Philippines, we were all forced by and surprised when everything had to stop, when everything had to be, or when everyone had to be in community quarantines. And I do think that this also is true in wherever you are watching this right now. Now, the transition from the pre-pandemic teaching and learning to pandemic teaching and learning, which involved distance learning modality, and now we are regaining our control of our classroom as teachers and schools or offices for the administrators and policymakers. Now, let us continue. Now, I would like to start by reading this statement with you or to you, which reads, the short-term and long-term impact of the COVID-19 crisis on children's education, well-being, and future productivity is profound. Now, to our participants, if you can or you are able to click the like button if you agree, or the thumbs up button if you agree. And if in case you don't agree with this situation or with this statement, you may actually click the thumbs down button to where whichever platform you are watching this right now. Well, to me, I think this statement resonates to most educational systems or institutions, if not all. We are all trying our best, actively and passionately finding ways to resolve the issues we face as the aftermath of the COVID pandemic long before we can confidently say that it is over. Now, for tonight, I would like to share with you some of my learnings from the report released by the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel entitled Prioritizing Learning During the COVID-19, the most effective ways to keep children learning during and post-pandemic. I would also like to share with you some practices I or we do at our humble school, Regional Science High School 3 here in the Philippines. These materials are wonderful resources to learn from, so I highly recommend them and encourage you to look into them as well. So for tonight's discussion, it is divided into four sections. So first, we are going to identify the problem that we have right now, or even the problems we had before, and the responses our educational systems has done or has been doing to resolve these problems. And of course, the findings or recommendations we can do to alleviate or to get through these challenges. And of course, some of the best practices according to researches that we can apply or do in our regaining control of the classroom situation right now. Because here in the Philippines, for the information of everyone, we are now again regaining control of our classrooms because little by little, we are going back to normal teaching and learning delivery. Although some distance learning modality are still in place for those learners who are still unable to join us in the face-to-face modality. Let us proceed and talk about the problem. So as a research teacher, I would like to call this a statement of the problem. Now, COVID-19 shuttered schools for over 1.6 billion children at the height of the pandemic, according to the UNESCO in 2021. This school closures threatened to exacerbate a pre-existing learning crisis. And this is a crisis we have been experiencing even before the COVID-19 pandemic, where many students were in school but learning very little even before the pandemic. This is according to World Bank in 2018 and Angris and others in 2021. Actually, analysis of the past school closures caused by, let's say, for example, Ebola, caused by civil wars, where these closures show large and potentially permanent learning losses, where poorer students lose up to a month of school year during summer breaks. Teachers' strikes, on the other hand, have resulted in long-term reductions in learning and earnings as well, where natural disasters reduce learning by 1.5 grades after they occurred. Let's proceed to another one. School closures due to COVID-19 can have potentially detrimental impacts on students' educational attainment far into the future. Short-term school closures due to the COVID-19 pandemic can have potentially detrimental impacts on students' attainment far into the future. For example, in Sierra Leone, in the aftermath of Ebola, 17% of girls never re-enrolled in school once schools reopened, turning a short-term shock into a potentially permanent one. Short-term shocks create long-run deficits if students who fall behind stay behind even as schools reopen. Now, hearing these problems, I think some of you, if not all, are already realizing that this is what is happening to almost all of us right now. So let me proceed. Another problem, learning loss due to COVID-19. Emerging data show or emerging data show large learning losses due to COVID-19. Some of the earliest estimates include finding that students in the COVID cohort that suffered from school closures in Belgium had 0.19 standard deviations lower scores in mathematics than prior cohorts of students in standardized tests. This only means that this short term, we call it short term closures, which were measured before, already had an effect. What more in our situation right now, during this pandemic, wherein most educational systems were forced to stop the delivery or use a different kind of modality to deliver the teaching and learning process. So definitely there is learning loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's have another one. The pandemic has widened education inequalities and this is exacerbated through food insecurity. So let me further explain. Inequality has also been exacerbated through food insecurity, which is critical in its own right and can have knock-on effects on education. This is based on the research as well. About 388 million children across the world received school meals daily prior to the pandemic. Now, what about during the pandemic, right? So this pandemic really brought a lot of after effects or brought a lot of problems to our systems. Let's proceed to another one. The pandemic might have exacerbated pre-existing inequalities in gender. Although the evidence is still weak, a key area in which pandemic might have exacerbated pre-existing inequality is gender. For example, a survey in Kenya found that twice as many girls, 16%, failed to return to school in January 2021 compared to boys, 8%. And other adolescent girls noted that school closure disrupted their access to menstrual products. So apart from the bigger problems that we have, this or inequality is actually exacerbated even more by food insecurity and even gender. Now, to give a glimpse or to show everyone a glimpse of our situation in the past 2 years, I actually recorded the uh, the website of UNESCO showing how education systems did or how different education systems actually did during the pandemic or what they do during this situation. So you can actually see the legends on your screen showing the different colors where lighter colors meaning there is no data as you go to the darker ones meaning they are closed due to COVID. Let me play the video. You can also access the website by scanning the QR code available on the screen. So as you can see, there is sporadic changes in different parts of the world as the pandemic happens. I do think that this data available in the UNESCO website is up until February this year or February 2022. What we can see here is that there is short-term closures or stoppage in the provision of probably teaching and learning or face-to-face teaching and learning modality in most countries and changing them into distance learning modalities that we all actually have tried in the past. I think that ends the video. So let us proceed. Now, or problems actually about the aftermath, although it is not yet over. Let us now proceed let us now identify our situation. Let us see how our education systems are responding to this crisis. Number one, learning loss is rarely being measured in low and middle income countries. So this is something that we need to take note of. Now that we are transitioning back, or let's say detransitioning back into regaining control of our classroom, we know that most education systems rarely measure the learning losses. But we know that there is learning loss. Let's proceed to another one. In some education system, there is a striking heterogeneity in types of technology adaptations, with many low income and middle income countries adapting radio and television led solutions. Now, this is also true in the Philippines. We also have adapted the TBRBI, where radio and television kind of model, or as part of the distance learning modality, radio and televisions were also utilized. However, in our time these days, where the internet is, where everyone has access to internet, if not, or if majority of our learners are already has an access to internet, I do think that the TV, the television, or the radio-led solutions are somewhat, in a way, um, not a waste of effort, but I do think that we could have paid more attention to other things that would have provided more for our learners. Next, there is also great heterogeneity in types of support that teachers receive during school closures of 2020. I do think this is close to our hearts. In our experience, the kind of support we've received are the different kinds of trainings, webinars available, so that we can equip ourselves, teachers, to handle online classes. Because we have to admit, when we did, or when we started using the distance learning modalities that we have, no one was prepared. Not everyone can handle technology or information technology that fast. That's why our department, or our school, let's say for example, has provided us with the support to help us be skilled or be upskilled to handle our online classes. We've also received support in terms of being provided with telecommunication allowances, so that we will be able to communicate or connect with our learners, especially during our online classes, or especially if there are problems arising during our online classes. Next, what else? What are other countries doing? Many countries have not adjusted what and how they teach or establish curricula priorities to reflect the new realities. I think this is very true to most of us. That there are still education systems who are still employing the old way, or let's say, for example, the old curriculum before the pandemic. In our case in the Philippines, I do think we are able to adjust in a way that we can provide more for our learners. Let's say, for example, in our curriculum, immediately during the pandemic, the Department of Education here in the Philippines, or Ministry of Education, was able to release, let's say, a simpler form of our curriculum. Let's say, to put that in a context, let's say, for example, in a quarter, in a normal classroom setup, you are supposed to teach, let's say, or facilitate learning competencies, let's say, 10 to 12 or 10 to 13. And during the pandemic, that was changed into smaller number, wherein there were only 8, where some of the learning competencies were just merged together, or some of the not so important learning competencies were put aside, so that we can cater, or we can provide more for our learners during the pandemic. Now, what else? Well, I think this is something positive that we can actually attribute to the pandemic, where education budgets have grown in some countries, creating a historic opportunity to rebuild education systems for more equitable access and improved quality. I think this is a good news to most of us, if not all, because we are given more, or our departments or our ministries of education were given more budget so that we will be able to move more and provide more for our learners. Next, last last thing I would like to share, that our education system or education systems around the world are doing in response to the COVID-19 crisis is that although many new approaches were introduced by necessity during the pandemic, few are being evaluated, highlighting an urgent need for evidence. This is, I think, very true to most of us, if not all. We are utilizing modalities right now that were not yet evaluated, or if a very small or very little amount of evidence suggests that they are effective. Say, for example, let's say um, online distance learning, we cannot say that although this is in a way a replacement for the face-to-face kind of classes, there is still student engagement, there is still synchronous discussion, but we cannot say for sure if it was really effective or not. With that, let us proceed to the next part or to the next section of our discussion for today. Let us proceed to the suggestions or recommendations or findings of the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel, where they identified some of the important or the most important things that policymakers or educators or education systems should adapt during the post-pandemic situation. Here they are. Let me introduce them to you one by one. These are the immediate policy actions. Let's start with number one. So number one is to prioritize keeping schools fully open for all students across all grades, including preschools. Because in our situation, during the limited face-to-face classes, only a few grade levels were allowed to go back to school and attend the face-to-face classes. So the suggestion of the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel is that all grade levels should be open, or yes, should be open for all students across all levels. Next is that reduce transmission in schools. How can this be done? Well, here in the Philippines, the situation is that us teachers are priorities when it comes to getting the vaccination or the vaccine. So all we need to do is to register and go to the site where the vaccination site is in place. Then automatically, people there will just verify our identity and will be given priority to receive the vaccine. Another recommendation is to adjust instruction to reflect the new reality. So when we say adjust instruction to reflect new reality, well, although we are regaining back our control of our classroom, we cannot just we cannot just do the old ways of teaching and learning process or the old way of teaching, because definitely our learners have changed in a way that they have adapted to a kind of environment where they can probably learn fast, or probably in a way needing more engagement in the classroom. Next is to provide additional instructional support to teachers. These are all the immediate policy actions recommendations of the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel. And these are things, this should be the basis of us in dealing with our classes as we regain control of our classrooms. Another thing is that our learnings, or the learnings that they found from all of the researches, or from all of the data they have gathered. Here are the learnings. Lessons learned during the school disruptions. Number one, we have to encourage parental engagement. During the distance learning modality, we've realized that parental engagement is really necessary for us to facilitate teaching and learning. Because without parental engagement during using the distance learning modalities, I think we would have failed without these parents who are helping us, taking the risk of, let's say, for example, going to schools, um, getting their copies of modules, or let's say, for example, assisting students with information technology or with devices they are going to use for online classes, assisting us in enrolling students in our online classes. And another thing is leverage is existing technology. This is something that I think, and even in researches, it's not something that we are looking into so much because I think technology is already in place. It's just that we are not using it to its potential. Now, let us proceed to the best practices based on the problems and the finding, based on the problems we've identified earlier, and based on the responses our education systems have responded during the COVID-19 crisis. And based on these recommendations that the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel has given or has released, let's proceed to the best practices on how we could recover learning according to Hanover research. How do we make it healthier? It pertains academic detransition. How do we make or how do we now promote healthier academic detransition? There are two things that we need to understand or we need to remember according to Hanover research. Number one is additional learning time, and number two, additional learning programs. These are actually things that we are now doing in our Humboldt School Regional Science High School 3, where additional learning time in different formats is or are being given, and also additional learning programs are being executed or facilitated at the moment. Let's start with additional learning time. Now, when we talk about additional learning time, this talks about extended school year. Another thing is extended school periods and days, and of course, instructional solutions. Let us first talk about extended school year. Now, the thing is, depending on our policymakers, they will still be the ones who will decide on which type of practice should the education system employ or utilize in their respective situations. Let's start with extended school year. When we talk about extended school year, recent studies recommend extending the school year to promote learning recovery. Is that when school year starts earlier, or this is done by starting the school year earlier, or it is extended into summer as one strategy to ensure students receive sufficient instruction. Well, we all know that there is an existing learning loss during the pandemic. So this is one way or one practice that we could do by extending the school year. However, just like what I mentioned earlier, it is still our policymakers who are going to make a decision whether we are going to adapt this or not. The key terms for extended school year in additional learning time is that we start the school year earlier and extend it to summertime. I think here in the Philippines, we are also in a way feeling this because the I think we are going to start the next school year a little earlier than expected. Now, let us proceed to another one. This is extended school periods and days. I think this is already something that we are doing in our humble school. Now, extended school years may be disruptive or may be disruptive to some communities or families because in a way, extended school periods and days is less disruptive strategy wherein families and community affairs will not be affected. We all know that families plan ahead. We all know that communities have certain cultural activities that they do during the summer that may be affected once we extend our school year. So extending the school periods and days may be something that we could actually utilize. Now let us proceed to the third one. In the third one, we can actually discuss a few. Let's start with vertical curricular review and cross-grade collaboration. This is also something that we have been doing even before the pandemic actually started. We have been doing this in the Regional Science High School 3 for many years already. When we say vertical curricular review, this refers to ensuring what students learn in one lesson course or grade level prepares them for the next lesson, course or grade level. This process requires teachers instructing different grade levels to work together to understand individual students' learning needs. Meaning, say for example, I am a grade 8 teacher, I should be collaborating with the grade 9 teacher teaching the same concept or teaching the same subject. Let's say for example, in my situation right now, I am teaching research. So it is best that I collaborate with the grade 9 teacher so as to be able to provide activities that will hone the skills or facilitate learners skill or learners learning skills that will need for the grade 9 curriculum. Another additional learning time instructional solution is what we call looping. This is also something that we have been doing in the past few years in terms of the research curriculum. Looping is another structural innovation shown to improve student achievement and recover learning loss using it. This strategy defined as the practice in which a teacher instructs the same group of students for at least 2 years, 2 school years. Meaning, if we put it in my context, or if we use my situation as an example, since I am teaching grade 8 right now, I can just take over and move on to grade 9 level so that I will know my students more. Since I have been teaching them in the this school year, I know their weaknesses. I know them more. They are more engaged with me. I already have a certain level of connection or communication with their parents, so it will be easier for us to maneuver the next school year. However, this is still dependent on how the curriculum is structured. In our situation, our research curriculum cannot permit us or will not permit me, grade 8 teacher, to move to grade 9 because our curriculum is divided into two, where grade 7 and grade 8 are for content, grade 9 and grade 10 curriculum is for practice. So I hope you are now seeing how looping works and the beauty of it. If in case our administrators or school administrators choose to employ this one. Let's now proceed to another one, tutoring. This is something we also have been doing in our school. I'll give you an example. In our humble school, Regional Science High School 3, even before the pandemic, there are, of course, there are students who are lagging behind, students who are unable to cope with the flow of this discussion within the classroom. So there is what we call math clinic in our school, where students will have to go to the mathematics laboratory of the school, where there are high achieving students or high achiever students waiting for them to teach them or tutor them. So this is something that we have been doing in the past before. In our context today, in the post-pandemic, if we could term it post-pandemic, I think tutoring, according to research, is something that will benefit our learners and will bring a difference in terms of their academic performance. Let's proceed to another one, individualized learning plans. Now, this is the last one for instructional solutions. Now, when we say individualized learning plans, of course, um, our learners are different from one another's one another. There are times where our learners, yes, are lagging behind, where us teachers need to be more engaged and need to be more hands-on in dealing with them. In the individualized learning plans will provide opportunity for the teacher and even the learner to actually um, facilitate a more personal learning plan for the learner, because we cannot always say that just by attending the classroom that this specific learner who is lagging behind will be able to cope with it. Sometimes we have to be hands-on and prepare an individualized learning plan for them. That is the last one for instructional solution. Now let us proceed to the additional learning programs that our institutions or education systems may actually employ. Number one, acceleration academies. When we say acceleration academies, contrary to the math clinic where most of the time lagging students or students who are struggling benefits from it, in acceleration academies, high achieving students will benefit from this one because high achieving students will be able to hone their skills if they are, let's say, for example, a little bit more advanced than their classmates. Acceleration academies may also accommodate learners who are also lagging behind so that the skills they only need or that is only required for them to move up to the next level will be given to them. Another learning program that we can adopt is a school-based summer program. A summer program in our community at the Regional Science High School 3 is actually not new. Even before the pandemic, we have been using or we have been doing summer programs, specifically in our science and our research curriculum. In our research curriculum, after their grade 8 curriculum, they will be allowed to join summer immersion programs or summer programs, just like we did in the past, where in our situation, it is very productive. To give you or to cite an example, our summer research program last year actually produced a research output that won in one of the most prestigious university research competition in the country. And that this is something that we have been doing in the past, and I think we will be continuing in doing because we've seen its product or we've seen its effectiveness. Another thing that we can employ as part of the additional learning programs is community partnership. In our school, we are also partnered with a lot of or with different organizations that provide help um, to help our learners be exposed and be engaged with other activities, not just the academics. To give you an example, in our school, there is what we call, or there is a robotics club, wherein we are partnered with a robotics company or a company providing services in terms of robotics, where, let's say, for example, in research, when students are struggling to complete their robotics research, we can just easily communicate with the heads or administrators of the robotics company, and they will actually openly share with us what they can do or accommodate the learners needing or requiring help. Now, let us proceed to the next part or the last part of our discussion for today. Let me identify some of the things I do in my classroom that I think actually helps our learners after or when we were getting back or when we were regaining control of our classroom. These are the practices for learners that I do or we do in our school. Number one is school tour. I'm not sure if you can actually do this in your own respective schools, but I do think that this is a very productive and effective practice that we can actually adopt in our respective schools. Our school tours was done to help students who are actually anxious when they first got into the school after the 2 year online distance learning. So for 2 years, our grade 7 students, even before they started their grade 7 curriculum, were unable to see the entirety of the school. They are unfamiliar with the different laboratories. They are unfamiliar with the simple direction going to the comfort rooms or restroom. They are unfamiliar how to get, or they're not very familiar how to get to our gymnasium, how to get to our field where our flag raising ceremony is conducted. So when we did the school tour, it provided a way or facilitated a way to decrease student anxiety when they first got back to our school premises. Another thing is BioTalk. BioTalk is actually something I've been doing. BioTalk is something I've been doing even before the pandemic. However, on a different context. BioTalk before the pandemic is actually biology talk because for the information of everyone, I am a biology teacher or a biology major. However, during the pandemic, it is one of the suggestions that we should all, as teachers, should provide psychosocial support mechanisms for our learners in our own respective classroom. So as a solution, we came up with what we call BioTalk, where in every opening of the class, we ask them, just like what Ma'am Jovelyn Arevalo mentioned earlier, we ask them effective questions. Questions that will try to elicit whether about elicit their current emotions. In a way, BioTalk is actually a space for them to be open and tell us more how they are feeling during um, or how they are feeling during the day. Another is reflections. This is something that we can do from time to time in our classes, and I think we have been doing during the online classes I've done before. Reflections that students provide are done using Nearpad Padlet, where they are going to post them online. However, when we got back to our classrooms, of course, students miss the way they are providing their reflections in small spaces like the Padlet or the Nearpad. So we adopted another one. We asked them, or I asked them to bring sticky notes so that they can write still their reflections and then post them on the board and we read some of them at the end of our discussions so that we can verify or further evaluate their learning or how they are able to assimilate the discussions during the day. Now, another thing is symbolism or icon. During the online teaching, online distance learning, or the our synchronous online classes, um, we have used well for an example. Let's say, as you can see in the presentation right now, for tour, you can see a figure of of a human being with a bag and a stick, which tells us that this person is probably on tour or probably hiking. For BioTalk, you can see two conversation boxes, and for reflections, you have papers. So in our classroom, symbolism is something that we most of the time utilize so that we can easily understand one another. Students have been used to the idea of learning things or material fast and move on to the next, which we still can adapt and employ now that we are transitioning back to our classroom. What else? The last one for this discussion will be mnemonic devices. I think mnemonic devices is something that we have been using in the past, probably in the collegiate level. However, I think this is still applicable in high school or in junior high school and even in senior high school. But the difference will be my strategy or my technique is that I provide my learners with my teacher generated mnemonic devices, and I also encourage them to create their own student generated learning mnemonic devices so it can be or learning may be personal to them. Apart from mnemonic devices, apart from this type of brain-based type of activities, we can also apply symbolic or icon teaching by using conceptual maps, where instead of writing the words pertaining to the concepts we are actually telling them, they can just use symbols, or they can just simply draw an icon or a symbol that represents that idea or that they think represents that idea, which is, I think, also very related to what Ma'am Jovelyn actually mentioned earlier. I think that is it for my discussion this today. These are the QR codes for you to access the materials we've used or the references we've used for this discussion this evening. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing your presentation with our participants, and we will come back with you in our Q&A session. So till then, you have to stay with us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, dear participants, get ready for our next session, that is quiz competition. So don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends in our comment box also. And also get ready with your question to ask our honorable speakers in our Q&A session. And dear participants, give a thumbs up or react to our webinar, and don't forget to comment. So welcome everyone to our quiz competition session. You can find the joining link in our comment box. Also, you can directly go to www.slido.com, and today's quiz code is ISGP quiz. So use your full name when you join in this quiz session, because it will print in the winner's certificate. Okay, so we are waiting for our new participants. And today, top 10 will be awarded with quiz completion certificates. Right now, we have 40 participants who have already joined in this session. We have Ma'am Sonam Yangchain, Sir Ashok Kumar Adhikari, Ma'am Carmela Behain, Ma'am Christina Vidal Rosario, Ma'am Hazel May D. Gaver, Ma'am Carmela Behain, Ma'am Jeremiah Alconis, Ma'am Charlie and El Infante. We have Sir Ricky R. Kalima, Ma'am Leah Facunda, Ma'am Gloria, Sir Michelle, Ma'am Kiefer, and so many participants have already joined in this session. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Ma'am Tania Kayak. Thank you for your cooperation. And dear participants, we will start our quiz competition within a minute. And after the quiz, we'll proceed to our QA and then our certification process. So let's start it. First question, what is the definition of culture? the total way of life shared by members of a community, or patterns of group relationships. So let's see the answer. The correct answer is option number 1, the total way of life shared by members of a community, and 95% of our participants get the correct answer. In this round, we have Ma'am Shona Miyang-Chen placed first position in our leaderboard, following Ma'am Charlene Keller Hamaguchi, following Sir Napoleon B. Tersolino, then we have Ma'am Junel Lord Mandave, and Sir Ashok Kumar Adhikari. So let's see the next question. Status in society means person's position in a group relative to other members, or whether a person is rich or poor. So you have only 2 seconds left. Let's see the answer. Okay, the correct answer is option number 1, a person's position in a group relative to other members, and 96% of our participants choose it. In this round, we have Sir Napoleon B. Tersolino placed first position. So congratulations, you answered correctly. Moving to next question, question number 3. Sociologists are interested in telling people what to do, or comparing groups, behaviors, organizations to understand them. So the time is up. Let's see the correct answer. The right answer is option number 2, that is comparing groups, behaviors, organizations to understand them. And 96% of our participants answer it. Okay, so in this round, we have Sir Napoleon B. Tersolino placed first position. Okay, so let's see the next question. Which of the following best describes a positive classroom culture? Everyone feels a sense of belonging, or everyone is happy all the time? So the time is up. Let's see the right answer. So the correct answer is option number 1, that is everyone feels a sense of belonging, and 100% of our participants answer correctly. Once again, we have Sir Napoleon B. Tersolino placed first position in this round, following Ma'am Ronilla T. Anoyan, following Ma'am Charlie Ann El Infante, then we have Ma'am Lasan Mundiandi, and Ma'am Leah Faconda. So congratulations to all the winners. Moving to next question. What is one common characteristic of opposition classroom culture? Academics are prioritized over social and emotional learning, or differences are noticed, admired, and taken seriously. Correct answer is option number 2, and 60% of our participants choose the right answer, and the 40% choose the wrong answer. Okay. Again, we have Sir Napoleon B. Tersolino placed first position in this round also. And following, we have Sir Alan H. Brutus. Following, we have Ma'am Shirley and El Infante. Then we have Sir Ricky R. Colima and Ma'am Bia Mary B. Paso. Okay, moving to next question, question number 6. So it's on true false. Is it necessary for students to be able to work together in separate groups in a virtual classroom? So is this true or false? Let's see the right answer. The correct answer is option number 1. That is true, and 79% of our participants answered correctly. Still no Sir Napoleon Bittersolino leading on first position in this round. And we have Ma'am Charlie and Infante. Then we have Sir Ellen H. Brutus. We have Sir Ricky R. Kalima and Ma'am Sona Myangchen. So congratulations to all the winners who answered correctly. Next question. In a supportive learning environment, children's diverse strengths are disregarded or encouraged. So you have to put one answer in the blank. You have to choose one. The right answer is option number 2, that is encouraged, and 100% of our participants answered correctly. So congratulations to all of our participants. Till now we have Sir Napoleon Bittersolino, this first position in our leaderboard. Okay, then let's see the next question, question number 8. So first we have a blank, then the question start. Learning is based on the idea that learning is a naturally social process. So you have to put one option in the blank, facilitative or collaborative. Let's see the right answer. And the correct answer is option number 2, that is collaborative, and 78% of our participants answer correctly. There's no change in our leaderboard. We have Sir Napoleon Bittersolino again placed first position. All right, let's see the next question. Which is a non-verbal communication skill? Using humor to engage students or using silence? So let's see the right answer. The right answer is using silence, and 57% of our participants choose using silence, and 43% choose using humor to engage students. So congratulations, those answered correctly. Let's see our leaderboard. Still now we have Sir Napoleon Bittersolino placed first position in this round also. Okay, we have lost one more question, that is question number 10. So everyone, are you ready to answer it? Let's go for it. So it's a blank question. So asking students, what would happen if gravity took a day off, elicits? So higher order thinking or contextualizing? So you have to put one option in the blank, and your time is up. So the correct answer is option number 1, that is higher order thinking, and 89% of our participants chose correct answer. So congratulations, those answered correctly. Let's see the winner's name in our leaderboard. Congratulations, Sir Napoleon Bittersolino. Okay, following we have Ma'am Charlie Ann L. Infante placed second. We have Sir Alan H. Brutus placed third. Ma'am Bia Mary B. Pasto placed fourth. Sir Ricky R. Kolima placed fifth. Let's see the other winner's name. We have Ma'am Chona Myangchin placed sixth. We have Ma'am Enelita Quitter Villanova, place 7. Then we have Ma'am Eva Dela Cruz, place 8. Jonel Lor Mandavi, place 9. And finally, we have Marigold Alok, place 10. So, congratulations to our top 10 winners. So congratulations to our top 10 winners. You'll get your winner certificates from our Facebook official page. After the program, we'll post it in our official page. So please collect from the Facebook official page and don't forget to celebrate with IGP. Okay, so let's proceed our next session, that is QA with our honorable speaker. Everyone get ready with your question to ask our honorable speaker tonight, and please address our speaker's name before you ask the question. So after this short video, we'll come back with our honorable two of our speakers. So get ready. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Welcome again in our Q&A session. So, dear participants, please write down your question in our comment section, and our speaker is ready to answer your question. And please address or mention our speaker's name so it will be easy for them to answer your question. Dear knowledge seeker, do you have any question or query? Please write down in our comment section. So here is our first question. It's from Ma'am Maribeth Dela Cruz. She's one of our lovely hosts in IGP. So the question is, why do we need to develop higher order thinking skills among learners? So ma'am doesn't mention our speaker's name. So I think this question is for both of our speaker.
I would like to start to try to answer that question, Ms. Cashin.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, I do think that it is very important for us teachers to elevate the level that we ask questions using HOTS questions, because HOTS questions are actually prerequisites for students to synthesize, evaluate, analyze, which in the end, which in the end facilitate their skills in critical thinking. So I do think that it is very important to use HOTS types of questioning so that we are able to facilitate our learners' critical thinking skills.
Thank you, sir. And ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, I agree with Sir RJ because I think one of the 21st century skills is to develop critical thinking and to be able to um, promote that in our classrooms. We are encouraged to use techniques that enhance higher order thinking skills, to as simple as asking the students um, what could be another use for an umbrella, so the students could think of other unusual uses of the umbrella. So that simple question could already encourage our students or enhance their higher order thinking skills and eventually their critical thinking. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question is from Ma'am Roanna Rodriguez Simpulas to Sir RJ. Can we say that online modality is effective in this time of pandemic?
I think to answer this question is to really understand our situation. The thing is, for our context here in the Philippines, we are not going to utilize online distance modality if we are capable of doing the face-to-face classes. In the essence of the pandemic, in the essence of it is that education must continue, just like in our presentation earlier, that we must prioritize keeping our schools open, whether it is face to face or online. So what we need to understand in this question is that um, the effectiveness is only, I think, on the second priority, because if it is able to facilitate teaching and learning during the time of the pandemic, I think that that is one thing that we should look into first.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is for Ma'am Jovelyn. And this question is from Ma'am Janeline Berha Mandave to Ma'am Jovelyn. Can you suggest some best app for virtual classroom?
Thank you, ma'am Jenny, for that question. I think the best basis for choosing which app uh, that is best to use in the virtual classroom is to gauge what the capacity, gauge the capacity of our learners, which app they could use. For example, when I mentioned about Labster a while ago, there's only one simulation for Labster that is free. So in our case, in our school, we are now in the process of purchasing licenses for this application. But for other schools where the app could not be purchased, then I suggest that this is not the best app for for that particular school, because this app is we need to buy, we need to buy this app. I think and another thing is it is actually up to the lesson um for you to choose the best app to use in the virtual classroom, which is more appropriate app for the virtual classroom. For example, in the for the purpose of eliciting positive or effective responses, you you gauge your students, what their how will they be able to participate. Are all of their internet connections, are all of their internet connections is stable? And if not, you can just use the chat box. But if you think that they will be able to use other apps like the Mentimeter or a Google Form, then you may do so as well, ma'am. So we all we should always consider the capacity of our students, and of course the purpose for choosing the most appropriate app in our virtual classrooms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question is for Sir Arjis. And the question is, the Department of Education in the Philippines wants to have to face classes in August, but the Department of Health projected that there will be a rise of cases in August. What must be Department of Education should do by then? Thank you so much.
Well, I think this question leads to decision-making kind of a question. In our discussion earlier, as I have shared from the materials we had, it was clear to us that the recommendation of the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel that we must keep our schools open. Another thing is that although the COVID-19 pandemic is still existing, the reason for that suggestion is that there is a lower risk for learners to contract the infection in schools as compared to their communities. And this is based on researches analyzed and evaluated by the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel. But I do think that the Department of Education here in our country, in the Philippines, is that have the authority as to what are we going to pursue or what are we going to do if in case there will really be a rise in the number of cases of or COVID-19 cases in our country. What's important is that education must continue. It doesn't matter what kind of modality may that be. What's important is that there is still facilitation of teaching and learning between teachers and learners.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Muhammad Israr, but he didn't mention our speaker name. So the question is, can values promote a positive culture? Does it create a difference in community in positive perspective?
Thank you for that question, Sir Muhammad. And I believe that values really do promote a positive culture, because the objective of a positive culture is uh, to be able to send the message of the lesson to our learners. And if our students feel safe in our virtual classroom, in our online classes, then they definitely would be able to confidently participate in our lessons, and then they would be able to assimilate they would be able to receive the lesson of or the message of the lesson that we're trying to get through to them, if they feel safe in their learning environments. So if there is respect and if there is empathy, these are very good values in a positive classroom culture. Then I believe that these values will promote a positive classroom culture and eventually enhance achievement and performance in the online classroom. Thank you, Sir Muhammad.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question is for Sir RJ. Mayank Gavi, sir, I would like to know if do we have a progressive way that we can apply for our students despite of having this pandemic?
All right, let us try to dissect this question. I would like to know if we do have a progressive way that we can apply for our students despite having this pandemic. I'm not really sure what is meant by the phrase progressive way, but I will take it on the context of progressive learning, probably due to the pandemic. Well, when we say progressive learning, it's basically teaching our students or our learners not to simply memorize or remember things, but teaching them to think. When we talk about progressive learning, I think one of the best right now that I am actually reading is project-based learning because in our school and as a research teacher like Ma'am Joblin Arevalo, our curriculum is actually project-based. So we really need our students to be thinking all the time. We really need our students not just memorizing what they have read according to their literature analysis or their literature think and use those readings or those analysis for the betterment of their own research papers or research per se. I hope I was able to answer that question.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Ma'am Javelin. The question is, what is the best way to collaborate and work together online?
Thank you for that question from our Facebook user. It actually depends on the objective or the type of material that we're trying to use or to what we gave to our students. There are activities that require collaboration using breakout rooms, but not all collaboration require the use of breakout rooms, such as activities that can be done using the Jamboard, also Google Slides, and also in the Canva application. So even if the students do not meet together in a certain breakout room, they can still perform their tasks using these applications. But there are some cases wherein um, from the definition of collaboration, they need to work together with their peers. So when we give them activities like games wherein they need to really work together and perform the task, then in these types of tasks, there will really be a need to use breakout rooms such as their own Google Meet rooms or breakout rooms in the Zoom app. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So we are taking the last question. The question is for Ma'am Javelin again. And the question is to Ma'am Javelin, for those students from areas without internet connections, what are those alternative ways that we can apply? Thank you.
I think, ma'am, to those areas without internet connection, then the online class will not be possible. But we are blessed in our country because there are several choices. There are options offered by the government, such as the use of radio, the two-way radio, and there is also this modular modality wherein modules are handed out to parents who go to the school because students are not yet allowed, especially in the elementary. The students are not allowed to go to school yet, so the parents are handed over these modules, and for a week, these modules will be answered by the students at home, and then will be returned back to the school by the parents as well. So um, two-way radio or the walkie-talkie as we call them, and then other options such as TV and radio broadcasting are alternative to the online class. These are also distance learning modalities, and the last one is the modular modality, all of which are all offered in the countries in the country in the Philippines to ensure that no student will be left behind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And he also wants to know that uh, what are your final advices for them, to both of you? This question is for both of you.
I would like to share my little advice first, as related to our topic, which is promoting healthier academic transition. I think the most important, one of the most important thing that I realize as we transition back to the classroom is that we need to know the level of readiness of our students. There are times that we meet them in school thinking we are thinking that they are prepared for it or ready for it, but then because of how the pandemic affected them, um, they cannot just simply engage and participate in our discussion. I think that's one thing. We need to check the level of readiness of our learners because they may be present, but their mind is on a different dimension in a different place. Probably they are hungry. Probably they are worried about the people they left at home. Probably worried about their siblings who were left at home because their parents have to go to work as well, and they have to go to school on the other end. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank,
Ma'am.
thank you, Sir RJ. I think from all of the changes that we have experienced and is still experiencing right now, I think my best advice is that we live by the principle of lifelong learning. Um, like I said, there are several modalities that is being offered when the pandemic uh, occurred. So teachers are obligated to learn to teach using the online modality, modular modality, and all the other modalities. And right now, we heard that there will be 100% face-to-face modality for the next school year 2022-2023. So if we teachers will not be able to do not have the capacity to accept that change occur uh, every day, okay, we will not be able to cope. So I guess my I strongly suggest that we accept or and we practice the ability to empty our cups, to always receive and to always be open to changes and be teachable. So let us live by the principle of lifelong learning. That would be very good for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir. And really, we are honored to have both of you in IGP's platform. And thank you again for sharing your knowledge with our participants. Thank you so much. So, dear participants, let's proceed our next. Okay, to our certification process. So today's program name is Promoting Positive Culture in Virtual and Face-to-Face Class, and the code is IGP 9723. Okay, let me tell you once again. The code is IGP 9723. Yes. And without this code, no one is eligible for certificates. And with code, you can claim your certificates anytime. And you can also visit our website. Our website address is www.eduigp.com. So collect your certificates, visit our website, and don't forget to celebrate with IGP. So dear participants, thank you once again. And dear participants, though participate in our quiz session, you will get your certificates after the program. 15 minutes later, we'll post it in our Facebook official page. So dear knowledge seeker, thank you once again for staying with us right now, still the end of our session. And I'm going to end today's program with a famous quotes from Sir Albert Einstein, that is, if you stop learning, you will start dying. So don't stop learning, just keep learning with IGP. So it's a great opportunity to learn, to grow up, to make yourself better day by day. So don't miss it. I'm inviting all of you to our next session tomorrow morning. So everyone, thank you once again for your cooperation and your participation. And we expect that and we wish that you all are remaining with us in this long journey. So dear participants, stay safe, stay healthy wherever you are. I'm Nasreen from Bangladesh signing off right now. Thank you. Thanks again. Good night.